the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody. This is Tracy Stuckrath. Soon to be on this chat with me is the co-founder and president of the Elijah-Alavi Foundation. And we're going to talk about what his foundation does to help support training and education around food allergies and throughout the country. So we're looking forward to that. I'm going to precursor in here is that if you hear the dog panting very heavily behind me, there's thunder. And Cassie does not like thunder. So I am petting her and trying to keep her safe while I have this conversation. Thomas and his wife, through their grief of losing their son to a dairy allergy while at daycare, he was 3 years old in 2017, and he was handed a grilled cheese sandwich. And he's allergic to dairy, and the daycare knew that. And they still proceeded to give him that grilled cheese sandwich, and he ended up passing away from having an allergic reaction to that. So they, through their grief, started the foundation, and they're doing fantastic work across the country and within the state of New York on educating around food allergies and to make sure that kids, no matter what age and no matter what socioeconomic situation they're in, are safe and included in the food and beverage that they have in their daycares and schools. So hopefully in a minute, we will be live with him to chat it up. And let us know if you've got any questions about that and how you manage that in your own daycare centers or what you can do for the kids in your daycare centers. Food allergies and asthma are life-threatening, and they, as he very well knows, and it causes disruption in so many ways, and we need more training in schools, and we need especially more training in daycares. And there is the Elijah's Law in New York City, or not New York City, but the state of New York, that does training and education, or requires training and education around food allergies for those healthcare daycare workers. And we'll find out more about that when Thomas joins us in a minute. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I was on social media somewhere looking at the impact that End Allergies Together, and you all did with money raised or donation made. What was that gentleman's name? The actor.
Josh.
Yes.
Yeah. And Allergies Together, they were going to have a gala, their 5-year anniversary gala in this space and everything. And as we are always partner and supportive of each, they took a lot of their, parts of their funding to put to allergy research, and also to help a lot of families in need who are suffering in this pandemic due to the COVID outbreak. And so they're working with New York City Covered to actually raise funds to put to help families in needs. They're an amazing organization when it comes to food allergy research, and also for them to focusing on help aiding in a lot of these situations that, especially with foods in New York City, that was a phenomenal thing that they've done.
That's awesome. And I know, COVID has caused a surge in, pantries, food pantries, and the need for food pantries. And our friend Emily Brown, and Emily has seen a 300% increase in usage at her pantry because of food allergies.
I remember meeting Emily the first time. Like, we all know everyone through social media. It's almost like a star-studded event when we finally meet each other. And so when I met Emily, and I followed her initiative for a long time, but actually knowing where her passion is derived from and everything, and what she's doing and what she's been doing now, especially in Kansas City, and also working it on a more national level, and making sure she can also help support in that way to a lot of families affected by COVID and in this food allergy space, provide foods and everything for them, because it's unfortunate that this is the times that we are living in.
Before you got on, I told everybody what happened. So, but
Okay.
You want to reiterate it and just say what you're doing now?
Yeah. As many times I tell this story about my son, it's always very, when I talk about him, it hurts, no matter what the situation is and how long or how many years it's always going to be very hurt, because it was such a tragic incident that could have been easily prevented. We as food allergy parents, we do everything that is necessary. We're like the FBI, CIA, we're like the government on top of everything when it comes to our children. And we want to make sure that the places that we bring them to, that they're safe and protected as well. It's always hard to convey it, but the message needs to be on a more broader scale for those who don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many people, and I come from the event planning side and educating that, and you're educating the schools and the daycares. And it's amazing how many people don't understand food allergies. And one of the analogies that I always use is that we don't go to the store and buy it, and we can't go to the store and return it.
Absolutely.
But I also say that they don't go to the store looking for the information because it's not around them. So we as, parents of food allergies or people with food allergies have to do that education and not really get mad at them. But it should be, if you're in food service or you're responsible providing for food for people, that you should be aware of it.
So the food service industry can be very harsh because you're dealing with a lot of turnaround, especially in that service, from chefs to waiters to you name it. So it's hard for management is trying to convey that message to their staff, but it won't come off that way. So it takes us to kind of keep reiterating it to kind of get that message clear and making sure that everybody understands.
Yeah. When I started this 10 years ago, somebody told me when in my presentation practice that I was too defensive about it. I was so passionate, I became defensive. And so I had to take a step back. And I think that's really important for all of us that have dietary restrictions or kids with dietary restrictions, is that we have to be cautious about how we educate and not get mean. And I mean, sometimes we do need to get mean because we don't get it, but we have to do it in a compassionate, educational way.
I think when it comes down to it, when we're dealing in a space with people, we know it. We know how to convey it medically. We know how to convey it in layman terms. But even when we do express these concerns layman to the layman's, when they don't understand, it's like, we need you to understand this. So it just builds up that anxiety and fear. If that person doesn't understand, how are they going to keep my child safe?
Right.
So in any setting, whether it's a school setting or a restaurant, a plane, you name it, we just want to feel comfortable and at ease. That's why, although this pandemic it's not something we want, but it relieves a lot of anxiety in a lot of parents not sending their kids off to school, because we're thinking about a possible cross-contamination or reaction happening with our child. So we have that anxiety it's relaxed. It's still there, but it's relaxed.
Right. That makes complete sense because you're the one controlling the food that they're being given and you're not relying on that. And, even in the event world, adults are majority of adults are not, I can't say a majority of them, but there are a lot of adults that are hesitant about telling their allergies and when somebody else is feeding them. And you have to be at that event because it's work, but you have to own it and you have to speak up for yourself and let them. I don't want you to get burned, but you need to trust them. But you can't trust them if you don't communicate to them. Yeah,
it's, from young kids to adults, it's that stigma of being embarrassed or people looking at them differently. That stigma has to be erased. You have a disability of food allergies, but you shouldn't be embarrassed about talking about it. I remember growing up in the 80s when I had asthma. I kind of got self-conscious about it because I was looked at as asthma was a contagious disease, and it was kind of like weird actually seeing that. Even in my third grade class, I remember her saying, "Hey, don't sit too close because he has asthma." And I'm like, what does that mean? And then I also had food allergies as well. And it wasn't as more prevalent as it is now. Like food allergies in the 80s, like if I got sick, if I had an allergic reaction, I was taken to the emergency room. They treated it as asthma. They did supply epinephrine because they didn't. Usually, that's how they used to treat asthma back then. It's like they'll give me a shot. Yeah, they give me a shot of epinephrine, and that was it, and treat me with like the nebulizer solution. So, and as I got older, I got more aware and understood like what was going on with myself. So I took control of that. So we want to get rid of stigma and be more confident and comfortable and fearful, like not fearless, be fearless about, we can do this. We teach our kids how to be fearless and be able to take control of their food allergies in an event of emergency, and the same as ourselves, and not worry about what other people think. I think once we get into that mindset and develop that mental stability and health on how to control that, then we're good. So it just takes a lot of teaching and understanding.
Yeah, and I think it comes with anything. I'm like disability or birthmarks or whatever. You have to be comfortable in owning that and being able to say, "Hey, this is me."
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like it's like me and going to the store without makeup on. My mom's like, "Put your lipstick on, put your makeup on." I'm like, if they don't like me without my makeup and lipstick on, then then I don't want to be their friends.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a little bit harsher, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think kids get the brunt of it because with food allergies in school and them being making fun of, I think as an adult, we can kind of like just roll it off our shoulder and be like, oh, maybe I won't associate with them. But for kids, being in that setting with other kids, and them being picked on and bullied, and because of their disability of having food allergies and being threatened with these allergens, and so the kids they succumb to themselves, and then they stay trapped in there and don't want to vocalize it. So then that's where the bullying takes place, and it builds up the anxiety and fear and the impeding doom of what may happen, and I think that's why there's a lot of food allergy counselors and therapists out there that can help aid in these type of situations, not just bullying, but also have them combat their fears and anxieties when it comes to dealing and growing up with food allergies.
That's so true. And you mentioned, everybody's a little bit more comfortable with it because it's at home now. But I did read something the other day that, when we go back to school, they're saying, hey, no group lunches, right? And doing lunches in your classrooms instead. And that it doesn't matter if you're in your classroom or if you're in the group cafeteria, it still has that same issues. You need to make sure that, Thomas is not bringing his fish sandwich to the room because I'm allergic to fish.
So, and I know the CDC had adjusted a couple of their food allergy guidelines that they have implemented. If anyone wants to know, I'll post something up on my Instagram where they can follow me and ask me questions, and I will send them to those areas where the CDC have issued and listed. So it's still going to incite fear in these children and the parents when they go back to school, especially if they're going to be eating in their classrooms in a closed setting, and that worry, like whether it is in the classroom or in the lunchroom, that fear is going to be there. And it's like we're doing our part as an organization, working with FAIR and Allergies Together, Allergy Strong, and a whole bunch of other organizations to keep putting that in the forefront and letting these big companies, CDC, and the FDA understand, like, hey, this is serious. You got 32 million people, and we have this 15.6 million kids with food allergies. Like, you got to make some adjustments to your regulations in order to keep our children safe. It's like, you can't relax these guidelines just because one thing. You're still putting others in impeding doom in harm's way, like if you don't do something about it. So, if tragedy does happen from these things, how are they going to deal with it as these big government organizations? Yeah,
I mean that, and I'm assuming you're talking about the relaxed policies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody's not aware of that, last Friday, just before Memorial Day, the FDA released, I had it up on my thing, food labeling flexibility guidance, saying that food manufacturers can relax if they have to change an ingredient or substitute an ingredient in their pre-packaged foods, they don't have to change their labels and they don't really have to notify anyone. So and I was talking a little while ago to Colleen at Zigo, and she said at least the top 8, they can't change that, but they could change something else, which could be sesame, which is not currently listed. So, they could change another ingredient in their food and beverage in that package without letting us know. And if you're used to eating that product because it's free of a specific thing, you could actually potentially have an allergic reaction because they chose to change it and not communicate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it may show, but a lot of people in the food allergy community have been reaching out. I think there's over like 1,500 people that's been reaching out, and the numbers are going to continue growing to make sure that, that their voices are heard. 32 million people in America with food allergies. Just imagine if 32 million people will say something. That will be all the difference. But even the small voices that speak loudly for the 32 million makes all the difference as well. I know with the new letter that we help kind of like help in participating and putting out there, like the guidance was to protect people with uncommon allergies. They're asking the FDA to require food companies to publicly disclose any food substitutions that may make it in their products by announcing it on their website or social media. Under the new guidance from the FDA, the top 8 major allergens and 5 other priority allergens should not be substituted. So they're hoping to include including the priority allergens such as sesame as well, which is not listed.
Yeah.
So these are the things that, Allergies Together, FACT, kids with food allergies, AAFA, a lot of us are like, we're standing behind, come together on this platform to bring this on the forefront to the FDA.
So true. And I'm going to go I know I can find it from Aaron's post really quickly, that letter, and I can post that link on LinkedIn, that you guys can see it. And do you have it on your social media too?
Yeah, it's on my social. That click on the links there, they can see the letter that was sent out. They can that and everything. There's still more talk to the FDA as well. Like they're still talking to the FDA, making sure that our voices need to be heard. This is a very major concern for the food allergy community, and our voices need to be heard. We need to make sure that we continue protecting the food allergy community. Like these manufacturers, especially if you have ingredients that are hold solely with people in the food allergy community, and we buy a bulk of it because we know those are safe. It only makes sense that these companies could kind of like help aid in, helping us in understanding what they're doing or making sure that they're not doing it and that they're going to keep moving in the same direction they have. She's been reaching out to a lot of organizations, food companies, and they're standing by, like not changing their ingredients. Snack Daily, David Bloom, he's also reached out to several manufacturers, and they're not changing them. So everybody doing their part makes all the difference. And I mean, the community is huge. It's huge, and every voice matters.
It does. And actually, when I talk about stuff, it says every guest matters, every meal matters. And that comes to labeling and inclusion. And Colleen was saying is like the manufacturers didn't ask for this, or at least somebody has actually asked, okay, why was this implemented, to see who did ask it. Yeah. I
think because of the COVID-19, we have a lot of agriculture and they're not getting what they need. So they're waiting for them to try to substitute these ingredients. So, either it's being costly or they can't get access to it because these companies are not producing it because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So whoever is asking for it, and the FDA has kind of like relaxed their guidelines, but it incites fear and all this concern. Right. So again, like it's getting these food companies on board on not changing anything makes all the difference. And I think like we got to just keep sending out those messages to the FDA, keep voicing your concerns, and it just and I think we should not just do it now because the immediate emergency. Just keep doing it in general. I think we need to just get on our soapboxes everywhere and make it.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. So tell people more about what the foundation is doing. And I was looking at your calendar. You were doing, I know you've got Elijah's Law in New York, the state of New York, right? But I saw you were doing training in Miami. So are you going national?
So we're hoping to move because of everything that has been happening. That kind of like put a damper on there. But then we started working locally with the state officials and working in that way. And I think, working state by state, we can kind of get more traction directly on the federal level. Going locally, it's easier. When it comes to legislation, you have to do your research and make sure there's nothing similar to what you have already applied to one state, and it doesn't cover over the other thing. So the best thing, if they don't have it, you can amend the current regulations that they have in their state, and and just write that section in. That's what we did with New York. Actually, we amended the current anaphylactic policy to focus on pre-Ks and daycare centers and other organizations that actually have children. So we were the very first to do that in New York and rewrite that whole section. There's a brand new section in that bill.
Wow.
The first in New York and the very first in the United States, although it's a New York state law. So we want to take, and I'm working with kids with food allergies and AFFA to work on an actual, I'll talk about it more. I can't really talk more in details, but we're working on something that we can kind of bring to everyone. And I think it just will set a precedence of how things should be done. And, and this just kind of helps what we need to do. Is the law was just, especially the children now and the children growing into this new world that may have grown into spaces with food allergies.
Yeah, and I think that's remarkable because it is. I mean, and those moms who have babies who don't even know their kid's allergic, right, to something, and so that it will help protect them at the same time as well. And stock epinephrine laws, to make sure that those daycare centers have those so they can administer it if necessary. And it brought to mind JD's case where, he went on a field trip because I'm sure, all schools do field trips, and we need to make sure that also is communicated when they go outside of the school a little bit as well.
Absolutely. I think with our foundation, we are on the ground type of foundation. We partner with a company called Balloon. We built an education curriculum that will go into schools or any place that actually accredited education program where we train the educators or anyone on staff. We provide them with continuing education credits as well, and we train them. We train them physically because a lot of people do this. We totally understand that it's easier to get on a more broad to get people up on a webinar. I feel that having person experience, you're able to retain the information so much better. Me coming from a medical space, working as a surgical technologist and working in hospitals and helping assist the surgeons in surgeries, just imagine me learning the surgery through webinar and actually physically going to assist the surgeon and not really grabbing onto the information. All of it is about repetition, retaining the information so much better. Before this curriculum started, we actually did a focus base on how many people actually being in-person training. Found out that in-person training, the information is more retainable that way. So it just makes more sense. It makes more sense. Like I said, I'm not knocking anybody who does webinar and wants to get on a bigger platform, but we are a foundation. We want to serve the community and give them that vital information first. Working with Belay, we work hand in hand. We go into the underserved communities as we can. Our goal was to get into 100 schools this year, but due to everything that has happened. And so we're working on just building relationships with these schools continuously and hoping within in 2021 that we can actually get back on the ground and do things. So continuing bringing more awareness just to keep the community more engaged with what we're doing and how we're doing things. They know that we're for them. We're not for us, we're for them. Elijah-Alavi Foundation is to build a community based on, doesn't matter on the socioeconomic classes, whatever. This is who we are, and this is what we do. It's all about equity.
And it is so much more engaging, to do it in person and to see the actual emotional reactions to things as well. and how to administer, the different kinds of epinephrine that you need to learn how to administer. And if you don't already know, the American Red Cross has a training for 30 minutes, that you can take online on how it's administering the EpiPen, and hopefully they show the other options. When I took it, it was just the EpiPen, but everybody should be taking that Red Cross training to know how to do it.
Yeah,
and
no,
so Food Allergy Advocate says, yes, I took my state's online food allergy training just to see what it is. You could click through without even reading. Okay, that's not good. I'm a certified food safety. What am I? Food safety protection manager. And in the ServSafe training, that they have actually, food allergies only takes up about 4 pages in the regular training module. So they pulled it out and created their own food allergy training program online, but it's an hour and a half. You can take the training on ServSafe, and it is an hour and a half long training, and you cannot go past a section without passing, a test. And so that's the ServSafe allergen training program. So I definitely recommend people taking that. But everybody does need to be educated, and the training that is allowed in different states has to be a lot broader.
No, it definitely has to be a lot broader. Like, I know, like, some educational facilities we went to, they didn't want to do the training. Oh, we're MAC trained. We know how to use the EpiPen. I was like, so we have to explain to them more in depth. Like, it's not about just using the EpiPen. It's how do you understand how to mitigate risk on furthering, like, emergencies, like in the event of emergency. I always use the fire drill. I was like, how many schools have actually had a fire, but you still do fire drills? So you still need to understand how to mitigate the risk when it comes to food allergies or any emergency whatsoever. So, like, with our foundation, we go into school, we audit, we do everything there is to kind of the event of emergency and how to handle it. And whether you don't have an anaphylactic reaction or not, you still have the information that's retainable when in the event of emergency.
I love the fire drill analogy. That I'm going to have to start using that, because it is really, but it made me think of the ones from, our parents when they had to get under the desks for,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And now we have active shooter training, and it's all the same thing. And food allergies should be included in that, because, and I was actually saying it in a webinar last night. What do your servers know your emergency action plans, just in general, right? And because a lot of servers are brought in last minute for events, and they may not have ever been in your property before. Do they know where the emergency exits are? Do they know where a defibrillator is, or hopefully where the EpiPens are, So I think definitely in-person training is a must. So Thomas, I want to talk to you more and partner with you more on what you're doing and what I'm doing, because it's just, they merge, but just on different sides. I'm adult side and you're the kid side. And
absolutely.
Let's figure out how to work together. But everybody, thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you some more, Thomas.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.